Free Britney movement. I also run the Free Britney Florida Instagram page. I would first like to start off by thanking Dr. Sugar for allowing me the opportunity to take part in this symposium, to shed some light on how social media has really affected the hashtag Free Britney movement and allowing it to gain the amount of momentum that it has, so that it has been widely publicized on a broad scale across many different media outlets, including social media, but also mainstream news. So just to give a bit of a backstory to the hashtag Free Britney movement, Britney Spears was entered involuntarily into a conservatorship in 2008, which was not just over her estate and finances, but also over her person, due to some things that transpired in 2008 that led her father, Jamie Spears, to file an emergency motion and petition with the court to be named as a sole conservator over her person and estate, which he was granted temporarily at that time in 2008. Fast forward 13 years to now 2021, Britney Spears is still involuntarily subjected to this sort of unjust, unconstitutional conservatorship that's been placed over her, to where not only does she not have control or access to her finances or what contracts she signs as far as what work she creates or is involved with, she also has no decision-making capabilities over her own person, meaning she can't decide whether she uses her own cell phone, drives her own car, who she befriends, who she dates, who she chooses to marry, whether or not she's able to have children or choose her own medical doctors or anything of that nature. And so thanks to social media, the Free Britney movement has gained much momentum and drive behind it to not only make changes to Britney Spears' conservatorship in hopes of having that come to a close, but in also advocating for other people in this country that have been entered against their constitutional and human rights into guardianships and conservatorships that are completely corrupt and unjust in this country. So that being said, it begs the question, how does social media play a role in these types of situations? And so I can speak on behalf of the movement as well as the Free Britney Florida page and give you sort of an inside scoop on how we were able to use social media as a platform to gain the momentum that we have gained, leading to a documentary that was released by the New York Times entitled Framing Britney Spears, which was directed by Samantha Stark, in addition to a Netflix movie called I Care a Lot, as well as an Amazon Prime docuseries or documentary that was entitled The Guardians. All of those pertain to sort of the unjust, corrupt legal system that surrounds guardianship and conservatorship in this country. So one way that social media has become a major platform, a major driving force behind the momentum, specifically with the Free Britney movement, but also with the End Conservatorship Abuse movement and guardianship in general, is that social media has in recent years become the main outlet for where people get their news and information in our culture. Previously, before social media gained the sort of notoriety and everyday use that it has now gained, to the point to where it's basically consuming our lives. Before that happened, at the end of the day, you would come home from work and you would choose your selected news broadcasting channel and you would sit down and watch the nightly news. What outlets such as Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and other social media outlets of that nature have done for our culture, essentially, is that it has given people a basically one-stop shop for where they can access all of their news information, and not only access the information, but it provides them with other networks, links to more information pertaining to the particular story that they may be looking into. These news outlets on their social media pages, they don't just cover the news that's being broadcast on their respective TV stations at night or in the morning. It's basically a time vault archive to where you could scroll back a number of years even to find a story that you maybe heard about that you saw in the news, and at the time you watched it and then you turned the TV off and it was gone. But with social media, it resonates there forever. And so that's one way that social media has really become a huge platform for where we find all of our information, not just in this country, but around the world. So for example, if you watch a story on the news at night and you shut the TV off, like I said, the information was there while you watched it, and then you turn the TV off and the information is gone. But with social media, that same story may be posted to, for example, if CNN ran a story, you could then go to CNN's social media pages, including Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and you could then rewatch the story. Not only rewatch the story, but it would also, in addition, give you links to the key players involved in that story. It would give you links to resources and networking opportunities to reach out and contact either direct people, advocacy groups, outreach programs, and other things of that nature. So it's not just a place where you now go to find the news. It's a place where you go to find an advocate or a like-minded individual or group that could in turn help you to network and to get even more drive behind the story, essentially. And so that's basically what happened with the Free Britney movement. In 2008, she was placed, like I said, unjustly in this conservatorship that she's still under. And in 2009, the hashtag Free Britney movement sort of took place and became a thing. The reason for that was because there was an audio voicemail that was recorded of Britney Spears reaching out to an attorney discussing her concern over her conservatorship. She was stating in that voicemail that she was under the impression that it was a temporary conservatorship and she would like to go through the process of having it eliminated, but she was very concerned about the fact that her father had been threatening her, that if she attempted to end the conservatorship, he would then in turn attempt to take her children from her. And when that audio recording was leaked on social media outlets such as Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, it created a buzz and a movement and something that people started talking about, not just in the social media forums, but it was something that they were bringing home to their dinner table and discussing with their families. So fast forward to 2016, these two young ladies decided that they would start an Instagram page where they basically followed Britney Spears' social media and sort of dissected the posts that she was making, the photographs and videos that she was uploading, the captions that were attached to those videos and photographs. And they basically just dove in deep as to whether or not she were making those posts herself, if there were hidden meanings behind them, if she were reaching out for a cry for help, for somebody to basically assist her in helping to end the conservatorship. So when Britney Spears, around 2016 or 2017, started making these posts on her social media page, again, they were being followed pretty closely by those in the know about the conservatorship and also just the Britney Spears fans at large. When that took place, there came a time where Britney Spears basically went dark and stopped posting altogether. So with a lack of content for these two young ladies to sort of delve into on a day-to-day basis, they directed their efforts at really looking into the conservatorship that she was under, the court-filed documents, the public records, and whether or not this was a violation of her constitutional rights, her human rights, and if this was something that was taking place sort of behind closed doors, illegally, or with some amount of corruption involved. So when they started doing this, they were contacted in 2019 by an individual who claimed to be a professional that worked on Britney Spears' legal team. He stated that he did not any longer work for the legal team for personal reasons. And in that voicemail that he sent to these young ladies who were running this social media Instagram page, he basically let them know that they were onto something, that they should dig a little deeper and that they should look deeper into the conservatorship and the way that Britney Spears was being managed or micromanaged, essentially, with regard to the conservatorship. He basically stated that Britney Spears was being held against her will, that she was being forced to take medications also against her will without a proper diagnosis as to why she was taking those medications. That she were attempting to have the conservatorship terminated, but was not being allowed by the people inside her camp, essentially, to even reach out to hire her own counsel. And that's where the movement took a hard turn. Within a few hours to a couple of days, the hashtag Free Britney phrase was sort of catchphrased and coined, and it went viral. A lot of influential sort of A-list types of people then, because of social media, heard the audio voicemail that was left by this person on Britney's legal team, and they decided that it was time to stand up and take action and do something. And so what they did was coin the hashtag Free Britney movement. And because those individuals have a large following, a large platform, just to name a few, Miley Cyrus, Paris Hilton, the rapper Eve, and many others started using hashtag Free Britney. And the movement took off from there. So because of the movement, because of social media, because of the hashtag Free Britney, and also it goes hand in hand with another hashtag that's used quite often within the movement, which is hashtag End Conservatorship Abuse, which is basically the big picture of what we're attempting to do here. Not only are we trying to get Britney Spears out of her unjust conservatorship, we're trying to change the legislature so that this does not happen to anyone else going forward. So with that being said, when the audio voicemail was released and the hashtag Free Britney was sort of coined and gained the momentum that it did, it started bringing attention not just from the social media platforms and those people who were already in the know. What it did was it brought attention to the mainstream media. It basically forced the conversation within the sort of media community to stand up and take notice of what was going on here. And so that's sort of where it all started. That's sort of where I came into play. When the movement began to gain the notoriety that it did, it piqued the interest of several other outlets, including the New York Times, who had done articles in the past on the conservatorship. And so they then reached out to some of the people that were, sort of at the forefront of the movement, and decided that one way to bring this to light was to go ahead and make a documentary. And so that's where the New York Times Presents Framing Britney Spears documentary came into play. And it shed light on the fact that social media essentially was the catalyst for what really threw this into the mainstream media, brought it home to dinner tables, had it being spoken about not just on entertainment news outlets, but this was also being discussed on Fox News and CNN, Good Morning America, The Today Show, 60 Minutes and the BBC and other outlets like that, which in turn sort of broadened the horizons and was a more broad spectrum, all-inclusive sort of bird's eye view of not just Britney Spears' conservatorship, but of guardianship abuse as a whole. And so, when speaking about social media and how its involvement has affected this movement, it is basically the catalyst that has really propelled the change that we're now seeing. It's one of the reasons why we're now seeing, congressmen and representatives getting on board. It's why we're now seeing legislature and petitions being filed to change legislature with regards to conservatorship and guardianship in this country. And it all stemmed from social media. So it begs the question, what can one then do to use social media as a platform to create change, either for conservatorship and guardianship on a broad spectrum level, or specifically to an individual who is going through such an injustice as being placed under a conservatorship that is a violation of their constitutional and human rights. So what can we do? So for myself, what I did was started the Free Britney Florida page. And in turn, what that did was gave me a network of individuals that were either working individually or as a whole on different areas and different aspects of how can we create change in this movement. So it linked attorneys to one another. It linked fact checkers to one another. It brought a human compassion factor to legislature that was probably being overlooked by the general population because they just didn't know what was going on. And so one way that any person really can use social media to their advantage when it comes to spreading awareness for something is by doing just that. Posting your story, tagging people who may be able to help you. If a story is posted on a social media platform and is then shared over and over again, it doesn't just reach the people that you may have in your sort of friend list. It then reaches complete strangers who have shared the story on their page and then reaches their entire list of friends. So I may have 1,500 friends on my Instagram or Facebook account, but if one of my friends or family members shares it on their account and they in turn have 1,500 people in their friend list, then my 1,500 combined with theirs is now 3,000 people that we've just reached, instead of using the old-fashioned sort of word of mouth that we used to use when spreading news and pop culture in this country. It's no longer necessary to use word of mouth when you have a social media outlet that you can use to reach the masses. All it takes is for one person to have their heartstrings pulled, basically, from a story or a photograph or a caption or a hashtag. And you can reach thousands and thousands of people instantaneously. You know, we live in a world that is all about instant gratification. We want results right now. We want to know what the specifics are to a case or a story right now. And so social media has bridged the gap between real-time events and word of mouth. And so with social media really taking off the way that it has, some of the statistics have shown that it's not just young people who utilize social media anymore. Maybe 10 years ago, it was a sort of a young person's sort of hangout spot to pass the time away. But now what it's become is a source for news. It's become a source for people to connect with one another. It's become a source of business networking, and so much more. So some of the statistics show that the age population for people aged between 30 and 65 years old, nearly 70% of that population is on some sort of social media, and they check that on a daily basis. So imagine the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that you could essentially or potentially reach with one caption or one story. And that goes back to the Free Britney hashtag. At its inception, it was being used hundreds of times a day. Now, fast forward to 2021, it's being used over 12,000 times a day. And every time that anyone goes on social media and they just put in the search engine hashtag Free Britney, it will bring up every single link to every article, to every court document, to every photograph, to every story that also has coined their caption or their post with the hashtag Free Britney movement. And so you could essentially do that by adding in hashtag end conservatorship abuse or hashtag free Jim or Bob or whoever that person is that you're fighting for, and use that as a platform so that other people can gain the knowledge that you're putting out there without having to really search very hard for it. You don't even necessarily have to have a social media account to gain access to the information that's available out there. You could essentially go to Google or another search engine and you could place hashtag end conservatorship abuse in the search engine box, and it will pull up every single article, every link, every photograph, every story, and every court document that has also been coined with that hashtag end conservatorship abuse. So it gives you a broad spectrum at your fingertips. in real time opportunity to do your own homework, to do your own research, to find your own venues and outlets of advocates that you can then reach out to help you with your cause. Another way that social media is influencing conservatorship abuse and guardianship abuse and putting an end to that is by the way that it is all encompassing in our lives. I mean, just the simple fact that having a cell phone and having an attachment to a social media outlet, just that alone releases endorphins in the brain. And those endorphins cause us an instant high, and it's something that we want to experience over and over again. So with specifically the hashtag Free Britney movement, using a social media platform and advocating for something such as that, it creates a high that you want to attain over and over again. You feel a connection to that story, and in turn sharing that story with other people gives them that same sense of high, that same sense of belonging, and that same sense of connection to a movement or something that they feel strongly about getting behind and supporting. So, social media has been the catalyst for many stories, in this country and around the world. So much so that at the beginning of the movement, it was just a few people who were discussing the movement within forums and within closed groups, and has since become a worldwide sort of phenomenon that there are now people who are rallying and advocating behind ending conservatorship abuse as far away as Buenos Aires, Australia, Arabia, India, France, Germany. Obviously in this country, we have advocates in almost every state, in almost every major city across the country. These rallies are taking place on a monthly basis. And every time the rally is, broadcast across social media, the movement grows and gains momentum, and it forces other outlets to stand up and take notice. Again, like I said, Good Morning America and Fox News have now reported on this. Tamron Hall Show did a special episode specifically on the conservatorship and the way that social media has influenced the masses by bringing the information to their fingertips in real time. And so all in all, the way that somebody could essentially use a social media outlet to promote their cause or to help them to rally behind the movement, to help to end conservatorship abuse, is by simply posting on social media. That's all you have to do. You post it and it's out there for the world to see. It never goes away. It gives people an opportunity to then share your post and your story. It gives people a human compassion, sort of empathy that they may or may not have had if it were just being broadcast on a news station, because they can physically go to that person's page and they can learn about not just the movement, but about that person's life, about what that person is doing to advocate, about other outlets. And again, documentation to court proceedings and court documentation and public record. And so I would venture to say that without social media, the Free Britney movement, the End Conservatorship Abuse movement, and guardianship in general movement would not have gained the momentum that we're seeing currently. And so there are so many other ways, to get the story out there. Having something air on 60 Minutes or CNN or Fox News is great, but it's not where the masses go first thing in the morning before they even get out of bed. The place that the masses and the general population in this culture go before they even get out of bed in the morning is to their cell phone and to their social media accounts to see what's going on in the world. So to use that as a platform, it's free advertising, it's free marketing, it costs nothing but your time. And it gives you resources of other people who are in the same fight as you. And so you can band together. There is power in numbers. Hearing someone's story can pull at your heartstrings and it can make you empathetic, but having power in numbers is where the change actually takes place. Bringing something to the light, holding people accountable via social media it really creates change in this culture. Nobody wants to be cast in a negative light, especially on social media. And I'm talking about from the average Joe, the everyday guy, to the highest person in the political government that we see today, which is our president. He has social media. He follows social media accounts and networks that way. And every president since social media has sort of come about has had their own page. So from the top of our government to the bottom of the everyday Joe, every person in this country uses social media as an outlet to get their information. And so why not take advantage of that? Why not use those marketing resources and marketing tools to your benefit to show people that this is what we're fighting for? These are the networks and the advocates that are rallying behind us. And here's their contact information. Here's what they stand for. You don't have to take someone's word for a movement any longer. You can go and do your own research and your own homework and decide whether or not you're on board with that movement or not. And that's all thanks to social media. So it, again, is the most important driving factor to making change in this country. If it weren't for people crying out and saying, we're not going to stand for this anymore, I would venture to say that there would not be petitions and people standing up within Congress and representatives to make these changes. They do this because they see the outcry from the population at large, and they have decided to cast themselves in a good light and get on board. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to strong arm anybody. We're trying to present facts as they come in real time at your fingertips for your disposal. And you can do with it whatever you like. But using social media as a platform is probably the number one way that you can get people to listen to you. So many times in this world, you talk to somebody and they're looking at you, but they don't hear you. They're watching your words, but they're not absorbing what you're saying. When you give them a platform like social media, it plants this seed in their mind and they go and do the research on their own. And people tend to take a sense of pride in feeling as though they were involved in something, they did their research and they did their homework, and you weren't the one who told them how to feel or think. And so that's another way that social media is sort of taking over. So as far as ending conservatorship abuse in this country, ending guardianship abuse in this country, freeing people like Britney Spears who have unjustly been placed in a conservatorship that never should have happened, it's the wave of the future. It is the way that pop culture is molding our society. And it's the way that we're going to see in the future that that's how we're going to get things done. Through rallying behind one another, banding together, and using the masses to make a change. You know, it's always been said that the way that this country is supposed to work is that the many control the few, not the few control the many. And the tables have been turned on us. And so this is our opportunity through an outlet like social media to take back our voice and to stand up for what's right and to show the world that we're not going to take these things anymore. And if they're not going to listen to us, we'll force them to by spreading so much awareness and by rallying behind each other and networking together that there's no other way out other than to be accountable and to acknowledge that this is a problem in this country. So that being said, I would just like to thank you for the opportunity to, speak on this movement and to sort of share what I know as far as how to gain momentum for your cause. And this is the way to do it. Absolutely 100% through social media. There are other ways, contacting news outlets, writing articles, sort of canvassing and, getting out there and talking to people. But at the end of the day, if I go out into the city, I live here in Florida, if I were to go to the closest major city to me, which would be Orlando, and canvass the streets and go out and talk to people, I may reach 100 people in a day. I may be able to speak to, 50 of them in depth, but within minutes, I can go home, get on my social media page, post the documentation and the platform that that I have to show the world, and I can reach thousands of people in a second's time. And that is where we are going to use this movement to combine with social media platforms to create change in this country for an atrocity that's been taking place and been, sort of swept under the rug and hidden behind closed doors. Social media has basically eradicated the ability to keep things hidden. everything is being recorded, every document is being published. There's nothing that you can hide behind when it comes to social media. And that's the good thing about it. And so that is sort of, it comes from a place of love and commitment and determination to make change, but it's also the easiest, most quickly accessible place that you can go to reach as many people as possible. So again, thank you for your time. And I am just looking forward to the change that's going to take place in the hopefully near future with regard to this movement, and the changes in legislature that are going to come from the social media platforms and the people such as Dr. Sugar and his symposium to create change in our culture. Not just here in the US, where it's a major rampant problem with guardianship, but in other countries as well. Like I said, the world is watching this movement right now, and it's not all about Britney Spears. She is in the forefront of it right now because she's sort of a household name that everyone kind of knows who she is. But she's not the guiding force of this movement. Social media is the guiding force of this movement. The people who have banded together at large are the guiding force to this movement. The masses are the ones who are going to create change in the legislature because of their efforts that came from social media. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for hearing about the movement. Thank you for your consideration and getting on board. And I'd be more than happy to have any of you reach out to me, and I can see how I could further assist or facilitate helping with your own social media pages, how to tag people and network yourself so that you can benefit and the person that you're fighting for, most importantly, can benefit from social media. Thank you. Take care.